Howdy, howdy, fellow movie watchers, and welcome back for another edition of the Wisco Movie Watchers Podcast, brought to you by PTE Creative. As always, we are your hosts, Seven Davies, and our favorite, apparently Star Wars hater, Dylan Davies.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that is something I want to talk about right away.
Go for
Um,
it.
it's I just want to give a disclaimer, I guess I would say, is like Star Wars to me is it's something I used to really like, and
Sure.
now it's just it's a property that kind of has just become like cheapened to me with like just a slew of content that they've created.
Okay.
There's just an overload of it, and but like I'm fully aware like people should love what they love. Like if you love Star Wars and you love everything about it, then yeah, like love every show, every movie. Like who cares? Like that's how I'm about Harry Potter.
True.
Like
Including Fantastic Beasts.
yeah, exactly. So like yeah, you love what you love. It's just I just don't the Star Wars world just does not connect with me at all really anymore.
I think that's
There's
fair.
aspects of it I like, but
So, as you can clearly tell from both the thumbnail and that disclaimer, we're talking Star Wars today. We're going to Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith as our last random draw for the big box office. We got 2005, and 2005's highest grossing movie is Revenge of the Sith. So, I'm about to say something that kind of a disclaimer as well. I am going to rescind some of my prior defense for this film because this film is worse than I thought it was.
actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you about this is think the prequels have aged better because of the sequel trilogy, or has it
So,
affected it at all in your mind?
it's affected it from an outward sense of what observing others. So, I think one Revenge of the Sith is the movie we need to talk about in terms of what is Star Wars' legacy, right? Because it's the theoretical end of the Skywalker saga, regardless of what they're going to tell you about the sequel trilogy. The sequel trilogy really has nothing to do with the Skywalkers, outside of Leia magically having force
Yeah.
powers out of nowhere, and then having to make that work, and Luke deciding that he doesn't want to be a part of the thing, and then he does last minute. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. That's not the Skywalker saga. The Skywalker saga is the original and the prequels. What I have observed in the fandom is, and I agree with this to a degree, that things as they age will either be kind of erased and no one really talks about them, or they will find this new level of appreciation. And then what I will say, especially with some of the younger people that are starting to be part of the online discussions, I mean, we encountered them in our comment section when I rewrote Phantom Menace. They were there were a few that were like you could tell they were probably closer to our age or older, and they're like, "Oh God, Phantom Menace was just so poorly written," or whatever. And then we had a few diehards that were just, "No, it's perfect. It's so good." And I feel that was partially a discussion based on. It seems like to me, observing younger people watching these films, they make them connect visually and then they can just go, well, this is what happens, so that is what is, as opposed to they're thinking about what happens versus when we watch it, we worry about how it happens and how it's presented. And that's something in which I thought this movie before I watched it, and I was in a good mood, so I can't even use my usual excuse of I'm a mood watcher, and I just was in a bad mood rewatching this. I just watched the This is John Williams documentary on Disney Plus. Highly recommend that to anyone because truly they make sure to tell you in no certain words that he is kind of the fabric to our movie. No, knowledge as we know it because of how well we connect with movies. So I was in a great mood, and then we watched this, and it's so bad because it's how it happens. It's not why it happens. I don't want to hear about how the Jedi are a wise organization that was deceived by a mastermind when they're presented like fucking momos, dopes.
Oh, I wrote that down like 5 times in my notes. I was like, "Are the Jedi just, like, really dumb?"
But
Like,
same thing is like, how is this to me is not a tragedy of Anakin Skywalker because Anakin looks like a moron who's power hungry. He does not look like someone who's in this great struggle. And when you hear George Lucas, when you hear defenders of the prequels, such as the people that we're discussing, they go, no, no, the struggle, the internal struggle. There's no internal struggle. It's immediate, the way it's presented. Now,
yeah, it's far too quick.
in theory, when you get to add, as you said, all the ancillary content, you get to add Clone Wars, which is 7 brilliant seasons of television that I adore. Without that, without Clone Wars and Rebels, I would not be as big of a Star Wars fan as I am right now. That's what got me back was Rebels and Clone Wars.
Okay. Yeah, I have not seen any of that stuff.
I adore Rebels because it fits perfectly into what it is, and yet they play in the world a little bit as time goes on, but it's very hyper focused on this time period between 3 and 4 to start the rebellion. And I think that's brilliant. It's the same reason why, until they decided it wasn't canon, I loved the Force Unleashed video game, because it fit perfectly in between 3 and 4, and how someone could become a hero. And that was a beautifully presented game. We just don't need to talk about Force Unleashed 2. But when we're talking about these younger fans and how these movies are appreciated, to me, when I'm watching it and I'm looking at commentary, I'm seeing them say, well, no, look. And they've heard the spin. They've heard for what. And I think it's very different to watch a movie and judge it on its merits versus watching a movie and then being given the commentary track on it and saying, well, this is what we were accomplishing. This is what we were trying to do. And then, as you said, in comparison, you have the sequels, which clearly have no ties together. They have no
Yeah,
structure as a
there was no
3 act
overarching
story.
plan.
There's nothing where that's one thing you cannot argue about the prequel trilogy is, as in my opinion, as poorly made as they are from an acting and writing craft. They have an overarching plan of how we're going to tell this story, and on paper, it should work. On paper, if you just break this movie down on paper, everything's logical. It makes sense on paper, like, oh, well, this happened and this happened and this happened. I don't think it's the best way you could have done it, but it's logical as to why Lucas and all of Lucasfilm and everyone really believes that they accomplished something. And the sequel trilogy has no direction whatsoever, and was any potential was blown up by Ryan Johnson hard. So, yes, I do think these have aged. I think they've aged very well in some people's minds and are thought of more fondly than they probably even should be because of the comparison of the sequel trilogy. Plus, I think we're now seeing audiences sadly kind of turn towards what consumerism is giving them, in which it doesn't matter how it happens, it matters what happens. And as long as we present it in a way that we think that they can get it, it'll be fine. And that's my biggest issue with this is I honestly don't understand how as a child I became so obsessed with Star Wars through the prequels. I
Yeah.
In rewatching it because I'm looking at it just going, this is bad. This is
Well,
just bad.
the funny thing is, it's just not been that fun. Like, it's like you can look back at the original trilogy, and they are fun movies.
Yeah,
The prequels are not like fun, enjoyable movies, pretty much.
Well, what I find funny about that is the direct correlation between the dichotomy of those trilogies. Star Wars and the original trilogy was presented as an epic that was really fun. And the only thing in it that was directly supposed to kind of be fun is the only thing people start talking about. Oh, that's the downfall of Star Wars, which is with the Ewoks. And everything else is just, it's very fun and enjoyable because you have characters you can relate to and beautiful visuals to go along with, and these ethereal stories that we've heard for thousands of years, and we're just getting them put into the context of a space opera, right? Whereas the prequel trilogy is written to be fun. Everything about that is supposed to be like, oh, look how fun this would be. Look how fun this would be. How cool would this be? How cool would that be? And you're right. A lot of it, you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember the direct text Dylan sent me, because we're now working on a schedule, and we'll share part of that schedule at the end of the show. I was like, all right, Dylan, we're going to record tomorrow. We have three choices. What do you want to record? Direct quote. Ugh, let's just get Revenge of the Sith out of the way. Like, let's just get it done. Because he's dreading this one. And I was like, no. I'm like, okay, Revenge of the Sith in the middle of the day on a Saturday when I got nothing to do should be a fun time. And the amount of times I was pausing to write notes to being like, what is this? Like, why is this? It was astounding. It was astounding to me.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. But here we go. Let's start into the movie. I know we're not going to go shot for shot, even though clearly I can talk about Star Wars a lot. But we have a lot of... If you have major gripes, stop me, because I know those are worthwhile. But I think the crawl, outside of one line, is pretty good. It's back closer to the originals than it is Phantom Menace, where they're talking about trade routes and taxation and shit nobody cares about, right? Only issue I have is there are heroes on both sides. You can't present something in the simple terms of good versus evil and then use that, and then the crutch a lot of people see, partially that I saw in the commentary from the last episode, was in the heroes in the Greek sense, as in there's just these epic heroes or epic warriors on each side, such as, Achilles being on one side of the war and Paris or other forces on the other side of these Greek heroes, or Theseus or something like that. Like, that's not the context we know as heroes when you're writing this in 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
So you can't present it as this big epic.
Especially when you literally call it the dark side. Like, it's literally light versus dark.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't work.
Yeah, so you have to do a lot more to present this as something more epic, and both sides having a real bitch. It goes back to storytelling 101. Well, this guy's got a point. Well, this guy also has a point. They're going to fight it out to see who's better.
Yeah.
But if you can't pick in the middle because both of their cases are logical and fair, that's when it's interesting. But if one guy's clearly right and one guy's clearly wrong, you're like, well, I'm going to root for that guy because he's clearly right.
Yeah. And I can see people like commenting something like, oh, well, Palpatine says something like, oh, well, from our point of view, it's different. That's only from the Jedi point of view that, the dark side is evil, right? But it's like, that is not a valid interpretation when literally from the original trilogy, Empire is literally a stand-in for Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
Like, it does not work. I'm sorry, you can't make a valid argument that the Empire is unnecessary good.
Correct.
It doesn't work like that.
Correct. And that is where the flaws are philosophically in this, in which, no, look at it, both sides. But you're not presenting it as both sides. and then you're trying to also have, it's like, you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. Like, you can't do that in the presentation as it is. If you want to go a different route to present this as
You could
two
do
equal
that.
sides, then you can do that.
You could do that if you were telling this story literally, but because we know like 4, 5, and 6
Yeah.
beforehand, you can't do that. Like
Yeah.
we know how this we know how your story is going, like know what you from the start.
Yeah. That's another flaw in this is we all know we all know Anakin turns. So
Yeah, yeah, that is a clear flaw.
so if you want us to be with the story and follow that and see it not as a villain, but as a true tragedy, that he felt that he was doing the best thing possible, you need to give us reasons, legitimate reasons, for him to do this. Pick at his character flaws, but don't highlight his character flaws as to why he chose the things that he did. Because when you do that and all you do is highlight the flaws, we're not going to have sympathy for it. We're going to go, oh, he's an arrogant prick and he's egotistical. Oh, and they just played at his ego. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, pretty much the only thing they play at is like his ego and like, oh, your love for Padme. But it doesn't work if you don't give a shit about him and Padme's relationship.
Yeah.
Like, like I don't care about him and Padme one single bit.
Yeah.
Like it does not work if you don't have Han and Leia level chemistry between your actors. It's not gonna work. It is so wooden. I mean, this is a little bit better from Attack of the Clones, but minuscule amount.
Yeah, so I have this note. I think we're just going to jump around here. So I want to get right into that thought, but I'll just say this so it's not completely bad. The first shot with the drums and the John Williams music coming in really softly, that shot's awesome. That shot's great. With
It's almost
the sun coming over Coruscant, and you just see that one ship trailing over Coruscant, and then you follow the two starfighters into the battle, and it just starts really. It's you get this false lull of okay, we're going into oh shit, it's a war, and it's above the
yeah.
capital city. That is a great shot, and I will never
I
take that one
know
away.
like the space battle people always talk about the oneer, the long one shot
Yeah,
in there. But I also want to point out like there's not really anything impressive about a long oneer that is completely computer generated. Like you're not working anything practically into it. There's no like real craft in making that. Well,
it's
I
not.
mean there is. Like
It's
it is
it's not
visual.
ILM. It's not ILM in the garage where they first started building this
Yeah.
giant thing and
Yeah,
doing
don't get me
everything.
wrong. The visual effects are incredible in this movie at times, especially for 2005. They're incredible.
Yes.
But like, there's nothing impressive about like trying to mix practical with CGI. No, it's 100% CGI.
And you can tell sometimes where you're like, why did we make that CGI?
Oh
Why,
yeah,
why did we do that? But I want to get right into that crux because I think that's something in which I don't know if it was just revisionist history in my head or what. I certainly thought there was less Padme Anakin in this movie. And there is compared to Attack of the Clones, but
yeah.
I really thought prior to this, I'm like, there's not really that much Padme. They kind of hide her for a while. And I went, wait, no, no, they don't. Actually, they put her kind of front and center again, and it's not working.
It's one of those things that I just don't understand. Like Natalie Portman is really, she's always been good. Like even when she was a child, she was good in Leon the Professional. It's like I don't understand why she's so bad in these movies.
I mean,
I mean,
uh, I have
it
two
could just be
theories.
George Lucas not being good with actors. It could just be down to that.
I think that's one, or two, because you can clearly see it in the Thor movies when she doesn't want to be there. When she decides she
True.
doesn't want to be there, she's one of the, because of the range that she has and the talent that she has. When she's on, she's on. And she's like that
Yeah.
classic quarterback where, like, oh shit, they came to play today. Well, they're about to throw 500 yards and 6 touchdown passes. Like, that's the peak of what she can do. When she decides that she ain't playing today, she's throwing 4 picks for 52 yards and a fumble, and it's going to be brutal. There is no, like, when she phones in a performance or isn't, like, trying her best, there's no middle ground there. It just goes.
But she's even bad in the first one. That's the strange thing.
The first one, I just think kind of gives a slight pass, even though obviously she was very talented as a young actress as a child. There's so much going around her that also isn't good, and you're like, well, she's a kid. Like,
Or
whereas when she is supposed to be presented as this very mature, regal young woman, carrying the crux of this movie with a love story, and then you get an actor that she has no chemistry with, it's really bad.
yeah. And I trust me, I don't blame any of the actors in this purely because it must be 100% like so exhausting to go in and every single day where all you're doing is going onto a blue screen and imagining things for the entire time. Like you're not going onto practical sets
Oh yeah.
99% of the time. Like
If
this does
people
not work.
if people don't understand that and they don't have sympathy for an actor in their craft, the thing is this is too often people, I've heard this about so many different things. The most famous one in my life is hearing about it from pro wrestling, but it's anything artistic. Artists are not plumbers. You can replace a plumber. And it's not to say that all plumbers are replaceable. When you find a good one, they're worth their weight in gold. Like, when you find someone who's really good at their craft, but it's a craft in terms of this is wrong, ergo we do this to fix. You're right, those people are, in a technical sense, replaceable, even though some are more or less replaceable than others. When it's an artistic dealing, it's not plumbers going to work. It's not construction workers building the brick wall. It's not, you know, it's not a tax professional going, okay, follow this, follow my math, follow, okay, this number is input there. Which I know that's a very simplification to a tax professional. So, and you're worth your weight in gold too if you're out there and listening to this. A good tax professional is fucking important, especially now. But actors are not interchangeable. You know, it's the magic is what the artistic expression that they bring to it. And it's certainly something which watch Ian McKellen break down in behind the
Yeah.
scenes footage of The Hobbit, because they go from this beautifully built stage everywhere that they possibly can, and when they have to use green screen in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, they're still building spires and architecture and towers and all these things to at least go, here's what we're going to do, and in the background we're going to fill the rest in because it'd be too expensive to build the whole thing, but we're going to build as much as we can so you guys can play. And then he gets to the Hobbit, and outside of one returning character in the second movie, he's not working with anyone he's worked with in the past outside of the director and writing team. And he's just stuck in these small green screen rooms by himself all the time. And he just like breaks down because he's like, this isn't what acting is. This isn't what it's supposed to be. You're right. It's exhausting. And then the same thing is, I would also put it back in the Star Wars lens. Go listen to interviews with Harrison Ford about George Lucas.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Yeah.
He loves George Lucas as a person, but he will be the first to tell anybody George doesn't inherently get the the craft of acting. He doesn't get the process. Very much it's, well, I wrote it. It's right here. And he's like, just do that. He's like, you can't just do that as an
Yeah.
actor. You can't just say recite the words on the page and it's Casablanca, you know, or
Mhm.
or whatever great movie you want to call it. It's not how it works. And it's the two of them together, Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman, is not good.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give Aiden Christensen this. I know he gets shit all the time, which I do feel bad for him. But like, he does try. I'll give him that. He tries his best.
The
He's
thing,
not all bad in this movie. He has scenes where he does pretty well, but there are definitely scenes where it's like, ooh, yeah,
what,
great. I
so
don't know if it's his fault or just the dialogue is just incredibly on the nose.
I want to say this about Hayden Christensen. I've said this before. This point I will not take back. I think you're correct about the dialogue. Nobody talks like this. Nobody.
Yeah.
And there's scenes where even if you want to say you could talk like that, I think there's one scene that's very cinematic that maybe you could try to get people to buy into, but the chemistry is not there and the people aren't right for that, so it doesn't work. It's early on where he's just staring at her and he's just like, "You're so beautiful." I can see
Yeah,
someone saying that to their partner, but not in
that
this.
scene is awful.
And then to try to have this big philosophical, so love has blinded you, and it's supposed to be done in this both philosophical way and this very loving partner way, you know, giving shit to your partner, it just doesn't work. It just does not work. It's not good. Where I could see two people with chemistry doing something like that and being like, okay, that's got some charm to it. Okay, okay. There are moments in this that I think Hayden Christensen is not only just passable, but pretty good. But they're fleeting moments. Because
Yeah, exactly.
when you watch him as he returns for the ancillary content now, he's actually pretty good.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
I really enjoy him. Granted, I understand he's 20 years older, he's got some more nuance, he's more mature. And with maturity, actors generally just get better, not worse, because they have more life experience to draw from, all this stuff, whatever. But when he's playing the same version of Anakin in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show in flashbacks, you buy Anakin a lot more. Because you have this balance of I'm being held back and I want to go and I'm a warrior and I'm going to go and I'm going to be better and better and better and better and better. But I don't want to push too hard because I do truly love this person who's my mentor. And you can buy that him and Obi-Wan actually have, although confrontational and frustrating at times, a loving brother vibe and bond. You don't get this very much here.
I don't get that at all.
And then Ahsoka, when he gets to play, I'm older and part of the Force Anakin, so I'm wiser because I have all this knowledge and experience now. But I still get to present it as old, cocky slash arrogant Anakin being a hero in the Clone Wars. He's great. All he needs is normal dialogue. You know, like when he like, there's a great line in Ahsoka where they're going into a flashback sequence and as like a young Ahsoka screams out, "This is the Clone Wars," and they're like living through history together as part of like the world between worlds, and he's like, "Yeah, no kidding." It's like that's a something sarcastic that someone would actually say to somebody, and it doesn't come off wooden; it comes off natural, and he just gets to be this cocky, arrogant character because he's fucking good. Versus here, it's like
Yeah.
you've done nothing to prove this, man, and it's terrible. And there's a couple scenes in which it switches frame by frame who's the worst. Like there's the opening sequence Not the opening sequence. After the opening sequence, which sets the whole movie up for bad stuff to happen. Where aren't we supposed to be in a secret relationship? So let's fucking hug in broad
Yeah.
daylight public and twirl each other around like we're in love. Which I'm like, how's this a secret then, George? But then she tells him that, she's pregnant, and there's that really deep pause. There's 2 or 3 frames where I'm like, that's Natalie Portman. Where she looks like a young person in an uneasy relationship who doesn't know how their partner's going to take the news of becoming a parent. And I'm like, that's good. It flips to Hayden and it's bad. It flips back to Natalie and it's bad. Then it flips back to Hayden again and he's actually kind of good for a frame or two. And you're like, do you just trade? Like, who's doing the worst?
It could be cutting between takes too, which is not the smartest idea.
That's also a possibility, just to kind of morph the thing together and seeing it. But it's like the two of them, even when one of them is given a pretty good performance with what they're given, the other one can't do it at the same time.
Yeah. So the thing I wrote down is like, all I wish is that George Lucas had got one of his friends, just take all the character stuff between Padme and Anakin and Obi-Wan, all the stuff that's supposed to be like friendship and love, stuff like that. Just give that to one of his writer friends and have them do a second pass on it. Like Lawrence Kasdan, bring him in for a day and just say, "Hey, can you take a look at these and just give me some notes?"
Yeah,
I just they're just so wooden. 99% of the
yeah. I just don't understand how he didn't do that. I don't understand it because it clear. The other thing is this is I wrote this down
because
as well.
he has extremely talented friends.
Oh yeah, I mean George Lucas is responsible for the growth of Hollywood in general, let alone, but a lot of people also got really big chances due to the choices of George Lucas, which is why we should ever, as flawed as the prequels are, we should always be grateful for what George Lucas did. Because without George Lucas, we don't have the Hollywood that we have today. Having said
For
that,
good, for good and bad.
for good and bad. However, yeah, it's bring Lawrence Kasdan in. I mean, shit. At this time, Spielberg's transition to being, oh, I don't make fun blockbusters anymore. I make Academy Award winning films now.
Yeah, and he
Even
doesn't write all that many movies, but he at least like understands humans on a deeper level than Lucas.
bring Spielberg in or ask Steven, hey, can do you have someone I'm looking at this issue? Do you have someone I could like even like David Kep, who,
Oh, that'd be great.
Spielberg calls his closer. Bring him in or at the time he was working with Frank Darabont on Indiana Jones. Have Darabont take a pass, or he was about to work with Frank Darabont. They had this like back and forth for a long time. Ask him, hey, can you read this? Just give me a few little notes, whatever, and tune it up. Because the thing is, this is the reason I'm diving more into this with every time you talk about it. I have it written down here. I want to see which scene I have it associated with, just to give it context. Oh, it's early on, yeah, where it's right after it's the scene I was just talking about, where they're on the balcony together. If you have to keep telling us they're in love, probably isn't working.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
If you have to keep telling us with dialogue, well, I just love you. Well, I just love you. I'm just so in love with you. It's not working. When you are in real life, you can tell which couples work and which ones don't by observing them and watching them. Are there exceptions to the rule? Yes. But you can generally go, they've got it together. Them, I give it 6 months. And most of the time, by most people's judgment, they're actually pretty accurate. But if you have to keep
Also,
telling us this in the dialogue, that's kind of a good way to say, George, I think you knew this wasn't working. So you just
yeah.
hammer down as opposed to just take it back, allow someone else to do it. Not that difficult, man.
One of the questions I wrote down is what's the point of the forbidden love aspect of it? Like, why is it even necessary? Like,
So
don't say like because it's the Jedi code. I mean, from a story aspect, why is it necessary?
so if I were going to argue that, I get the forbidden love because it's another way that he is an outsider to the norm that he has chosen in life, and it puts more pressure on him to go against his moral code. So when he's against his moral code already, it allows you to see, well, I would take this to protect this. Okay, I would do this even though I'm not comfortable to protect it. I would do this where, it's funny how one of the
But
cruxes of the
I would
movie later is when he feels dishonest, like he's betraying the chancellor, future emperor, to spy on him, and he's like, "Oh, they made you do something that made you feel dishonest," and he's like, and it's clear like that's what he's more uncomfortable about. It's like, "Oh, you're more than happy to lie to everybody, including quote unquote your best friend and mentor, about the love of your life, but spying on a guy that clearly, when he's not speaking to you, is not kind to anybody." That's when you're like, oh, I feel
but
dishonest and wrong.
okay, but I would argue if he just let everyone know, if he let the Jedi know that he is in love with Padme, he's having this child, and he has seen that she's gonna die in childbirth, and what can I do about this? And the Jedi clearly wouldn't have an answer for that. It would just be like, you have to trust in the Force, blah blah blah. That would be another reason for him to become jaded towards the Jedi and further towards the dark side.
Sure.
Like it would give another reason for him to go darker.
Yeah, I could see that one.
And I don't see why is the whole Jedi forbidden love thing even a thing? Like, is that just a decision on the whim from George Lucas?
Feels like it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the thing is, this is I feel like, again, with the passage of time, we've gotten so much more explanations of lore and all this other stuff that the way George Lucas was trying to present the Jedi as a very decadent and archaic organization that lost its way, that they became so much the banister for the moral high ground that they just kept doubling down and saying, well, we can't do this because of this. We can't do this because of this. We can't do this because of this. Which is why characters that I find very fascinating now are the ones that don't play by those rules. That's why I love Ahsoka. Ahsoka's like, well, she's not a Jedi, but all the best aspects of being a Jedi, she still upholds. All the stupid ones that make no sense, she doesn't do. That's why I find Ahsoka to be such a great character for Star Wars. Or why
Yeah.
expanded universe Luke is way more fascinating when he he sees the Jedi where their flaws were and learns from them and goes, "Hold on, we're supposed to love and care for everything. But the way we do that is to repress our own feelings? This doesn't make sense." Whereas he
Yeah.
eventually falls in love with a former assassin of the fucking emperor, and he's just like, "Well, no, I've fallen in love. Have a family." Like, And that to me is far more intriguing and fascinating because that's logical.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's,
it's bad. It doesn't make sense.
okay, so then the other question I wrote down, I brought it up earlier, is okay, do the Jedi just are they just weak with the Force or something? Is Yoda just completely overrated? Because they like the most evil person in the galaxy is on the same planet with them, seemingly in the same city as them. I
Yeah.
yeah, and they don't suspect anything until like this first part of the movie.
Again, this is where I piss off my fellow Star Wars nerds. There is an explanation for this in which, oh, the Sith powers that you can cloak yourself and not give off your abilities and your aura or whatever, your power in the Force. That's just lazy.
Yeah,
I have no
that's just
issue. I have
that's just
no
convenience.
I have no issue if that power exists and it's used once.
Sure. Yeah.
Or you could say like I would or if it was almost like a spell where it's like I'm using this so I can't use anything else. I can't use any other force power. I can't do anything else. Okay, fine. But then that should mean when you get Palpatine trying to be manipulative to a real degree, shades of the Emperor have to start coming back. Because like there's a theory out there that the Mace Windu fight and the
Yeah.
lightning is attacking him, and it's made to look like the lightning did that to him. There's a fan theory out there that makes more sense with the whole cloaking thing, the cloaking power, that Palpatine was already so down the road of the dark side. The dark side, when you use more dark side powers, it deforms you. So
Okay.
the theory is Palpatine already looked like that. He was using the dark side to cloak himself, kind of like Sauron in Lord of the Rings, like as a real fair person. And then when he finally stops using that part of the dark side, you can see who he actually is. With the evil yellow eyes and the whole ragged appearance. If they would have done more with that, and like all of a sudden there's just these little snippets where he's starting to use the force a little too much to try to manipulate people. And all of a sudden you're like, I see. Ooh, okay. I think that could have worked. But when it's
You know
just
why I would say that's 100% not true though? Because they don't say that in the movie.
exactly,
George Lucas would have said that in the movie had he had that idea.
he's a big fan of the exposition.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, also the amount of times that we get, I don't understand why we get the exposition dumps that we do.
Which one specifically?
Okay, so remember, end of Attack of the Clones is the start of the Clone War, right?
Oh, so I haven't seen that one in forever, but yes, I do remember parts of it. Yeah.
So that is supposed to be like the literal inciting incident of the Clone Wars.
Okay.
We're now mid war, and then we're getting General Kenobi, the Peacekeeper, the Negotiator, right? How would we know any of that? When in just conversation it's just said like, wouldn't we know that he's a general? It's like, no. You're presenting him the same fucking way you did last time. He's with Anakin. They're doing
Yeah.
shit. How would you know he's a general? How would you know that he has this reputation for actually going in and negotiating for peace? You wouldn't.
Yeah.
So we don't get that one. But then we'll get stuff like we'll get stuff later on when Padme lands on Mustafar. Oh no, it's right before that. When Anakin goes to Padme after he's executed Order 66, he's killed a bunch of kids and a bunch of other Jedi. And then he
I'm
like
sorry. I'm sorry, youngling. Please.
Yes, younglings. And then he recaps the entire thing in 3 sentences to Padme. And you're like, we just saw it.
The only thing I could think of is like maybe he's trying to put his spin on it,
But he doesn't do
but
a good job of
also,
that. I was about to say, if he puts his own spin on it,
yeah,
make it
exactly.
clear he's putting his own spin on it.
Yes, he should be going further into like trying to force his narrative. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't do a good job with that. I'll give you that.
And
That's for
that's
sure.
and that I'm sorry. I know it's, and especially to the people that watch this that comment on the Star Wars videos specifically, we're gonna do in this year for Star Wars Day. I'm going to be rewriting Attack of the Clones, so that's gonna come out Sunday, May 4th, and then we're gonna do for Black Friday or one of the or another like later on in the calendar year episodes. I'm gonna rewrite Revenge of the Sith as long as time allots. I couldn't help but just go, why wasn't this done? Why wasn't this done? And I don't want to go that route and want trying to just critique the film, but there's 15 better avenues that could have been taken that I'm like, why didn't we do this or why didn't we do that kind of thing. But yeah, it's just so many. What I'm having the realization is it feels like, all due respect to him, George Lucas is trying to write a philosophical piece that he does not have the capability to do so.
To me, I honestly think it's just doesn't have enough people looking at his stuff. It just doesn't seem like there's people that he trusts going, it seems like he's surrounded by yes men, which I think is a, a clear like through line through the prequels that it's literally just people going, "Sure, George, we'll do whatever the fuck you say."
Well, I mean, that's why I love John Knoll from ILM so much. He's like, you really
Yeah,
shouldn't do this. You really shouldn't do that. Well, the lighting's bad, and that's fine. Just make it work. And he's like, he's my boss. It's his movie. I have
but
to
at
do it.
times you should at least go, ask some questions, especially when it comes to the story. Like, hey, wouldn't it be easier? Wouldn't it be, you know, um, because there's a lot that could be condensed in this trilogy.
Oh yeah,
'Cause this movie's what 2 hours and 20
27.
minutes.
Yeah, 227.
Yeah, I was like, when I saw that, I was like, "Dear Lord,
Well, the
why
funny
is
part
this
is,
that long?"
what's funny is I still feel like we didn't get much. We
Yeah, I
didn't.
was like, "Oh, it was a slog at times."
What doesn't make sense to me is the I feel like we get all this exposition to shit we don't need. But to understand where the characters are, to understand what's happened to them, all this kind of stuff, we don't get any exposition that we do need. Like the one example
But
that I
yeah,
just brought up.
they spend way more time on spectacle than they do on character. That's just the truth of the entire trilogy.
And I look at it this way from the lens that I had as a child watching these movies. I remember watching Phantom Menace and then going to Attack of the Clones, and that came out right before I turned 10, right? So around 9, 10 years old, I immediately got, oh, there's a time jump. A lot's happened because we went from kid Anakin to adult Anakin, right? That's logical. I remember being in the theater for Revenge of the Sith 3 years later, and I'm watching more movies at this time and all this kind of stuff, and going, how far into the future is this? Like, how much has happened? And I would be like, I don't know, 3 years, I guess. And I'm applying real world logic. I'm like, well, we just learned about World War II, and that was about 5, 6 years. This. So maybe this is like 3 years, 4 years. I don't know. And it's supposed to be like a 10-year fucking gap,
Oh,
almost.
really?
That's how it's kind
I
of
did not
presented.
know
It's
that.
kind of how it's presented. Well, think about it this way: Anakin goes from petulant child who hasn't even taken the Jedi trials yet to taking the Jedi trials, becoming a Jedi Knight, getting Ahsoka as an apprentice,
Well, I
teaching
don't know
her
that though.
teaching her for years,
I'm
losing
going
her as an
100% off
apprentice, and then doing
movies
that.
though.
I understand that, but that's what I'm talking about. Is all that was approved by George Lucas. All that stuff I just said was George Lucas fueled, right? So if he has that in
Before,
mind, he has to put into writing a way to explain the Clone Wars have aged for a decade or near that time, or 7 years, 8 years. A big time jump so you can actually believe that this isn't a. Anakin's supposed to be what? 18 ish? 19 ish in Attack of the Clones, right?
that'd be my guess. Yeah.
Right? If you go through it the way it's written, I'm supposed to think that this guy's what? Early 20s to max mid 20s?
Yeah, that's what I got, like 25-ish, I guess.
But then he's being presented in ways of maturity, theoretically, in which he's supposed to be like early 30s sometimes, where he's
Well,
supposed to have
that's
this
the
great moral compass and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, this isn't working. This
so his
doesn't work.
character's his character would be way more defined than it is in this one,
Yeah.
because he's still acting petulant like a child at times when he's like not given like Jedi Master status.
Yeah.
Still acting like a petulant child there. But then at other times it's like, oh, he's all about honor and code. Talking to Palpatine, he's like, oh, the Jedi are selfless. But it's like, it's not at all what you have shown at all.
Right.
Which is okay if that's his character flaw. You're gonna show that, but then actually show that for her.
Yeah. And
Because
that's the thing.
at
It doesn't come
times,
off.
yeah, his character still is all over the place, and at this point, it should be way more defined than it is. It should this almost his character in this one should almost be where he is in the second movie, and then this one should be him really flipping to the dark side.
See, that's the thing. Is that, again, I don't want to go into territory of what I would write, but I feel like Attack of the Clones should have been actual war, where they're young, and that shapes Anakin. Where you can still do half the stuff you do, where he's sent away from the battle because he has to protect Padme. That's how their love story really is fostered. I have no issue with that. But make it even more of a jealousy point. Make it even more of a I'm the best warrior and you won't let me go. This is your fault these things aren't happening. I could have got the job done. Because that we can buy. Because every time he fights outside of Dooku, he usually wins pretty handedly.
Mhm.
Do that and showcase that. So then here, the best thing that the Clone Wars does is make you actually like Anakin Skywalker. He's a very likable character. And then you can actually see the moments going, oh yeah, that sucks. I feel bad for him. I understand how he fell. Whatever. Then this one, as you just said, this should be where he's already on the edge. And Palpatine, every time he gets his claws into him, just goes, I'm pushing you off the edge. You're getting closer
Yeah,
and closer and closer and closer. But we don't get that.
yeah. I think the biggest think the biggest mistake of this trilogy is that they started with Anakin as a child. It almost should have been him as a teenager, and then you have chemistry with him and Padme, so you can start off with a relationship immediately.
Yeah,
And then in the second one, you show love, and then in this one, you can show betrayal or like desperation,
yeah.
and that would make sense. But because it was like childhood, like weird pseudo romance
And
between,
childhood crush on someone who's older
yeah,
than you and clearly doesn't have those feelings at that time.
yeah, like because of that, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It's not. It's not great.
Oh, I also have another question for you here. Are they implying that your Darth Plagueis or Palpatine is Anakin's father?
That's another wormhole that's opened.
Okay.
Been extended universe stuff that isn't canon that's legitimately shown Palpatine like influencing the midichlorians to create Anakin, but that's not canon anymore. Uh,
Okay. I was like,
ag-
why would they put that in there if that wasn't what they're implying?
exactly. It's another one where was he created, because the idea theoretically is supposed to be the chosen one, whether it be Anakin or whatever the Force creates, is this is the Force acting in a human being going, this is fucked. We need to balance this shit out, or everything's going to go worse. So we're going to create this
Okay.
being. Theoretically, that's what it's supposed to be, right?
Sure.
Is that the Force is so strong that it can balance itself by creating an individual. But here, you don't get that.
It would almost make way more sense if they just had it. Keep Palpatine is quote unquote father.
Yeah,
That way, it's like you give them another reason to lean towards that side.
yeah,
There's so many odd decisions that they don't take, and then so many odd decisions that they do take.
yeah. And I'm okay if they're not true blood relatives, if he's kind of like this weird amalgamation thing. But at the same time, I think there's still ways. I think again, what happens is good. The Emperor, when you break it down, the Emperor manipulates this clearly broken and challenged human being into becoming his father figure, into becoming the only guiding light that he has that he trusts. He manipulates him into that point, to the point where he will do all of your bidding. I think that's a really good, smart idea. The way it's shown and how it happens doesn't fucking work. It's that simple.
Oh, so yeah, the note I had down for that scene in particular is the scene where he's like, where it shows Mace Windu dying, him really like choosing the dark side.
Yeah.
It should have just been absolutely no dialogue after Mace Windu dies. It should have just been like, could have been, what have I done? Blah blah blah.
Uh-huh.
But then when Palpatine, urges him to choose the dark side, he should just like knelt. That way, we 100% understand he's chosen the dark side, and we don't need any dialogue between the two to understand that.
Well,
That way, we don't have to listen to Aiden Christensen like forcing this awful dialogue, which is not his fault. I think the dialogue there is the worst in the movie. That scene is like so ham-handed.
yeah.
It is bad. It's just like immediately, just like I'll do whatever you want. I don't care.
It's so bad. So bad.
And that's yeah, because he should have just like knelt down, and then he could have just said, "Okay, rise, Lord Vader," whatever. Like, that way you could cut all that dialogue.
So I have this. I have real beef with that entire section. One, the turn is way too fast. But you
Yeah, that's the
showcase,
problem.
you show he's going to turn beforehand through his own stupidity. And again, I want to talk about this after we talk about this scene. How everyone in this movie is a fucking moron. Including, quote unquote, the wisest fucking person in the universe.
Oh, Yoda? Yeah.
But, okay, let's play this out. Anakin, the good guy, the hero that he's supposed to be, allegedly, finds out the most powerful political being in the universe, the entire galaxy, is an evil Sith Lord who has manipulated an entire war for like a decade.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he A, try to fight right there? If you want to say he was impetuous and wanted to take care of the problem. Or B, stay with him, call the Jedi, and say, he's just revealed this to me. I need you here as fast as you can. But no, he leaves him alone.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
What is a cop supposed to do? Someone admits to being a murderer, has all the clues to being a murderer right around them. I'm coming back with more cops to get you. No, they're gonna arrest him on the fucking spot.
It doesn't make sense that like I get why Mace Windu doesn't bring him along, but he really should
Yes.
bring Anakin along just to verify. You know, he's the witness through it.
Again, Mace Windu looks like a moron.
And Anakin is a Jedi, whether Mace Windu likes it or not.
Yeah.
It's like he's chosen a side at this point.
And he keeps trying to prove himself. Give him the chance to prove himself. Hey, oh my god, you did this? You found this out. Okay, I'm going to trust you. I'm showing I'm trusting you. Ball's in your court. I need you to come through for me here. Not, thanks for letting me know. We'll handle it, kid.
Yeah. Also, I have to point out, I love Sam Jackson.
He's so bad at this.
He's phoning it in so hard. I was like, when I was watching this, dear God, it's like he just does not give a fuck.
It's bad.
Like you watch him in any of the Tarantino movies, and he's giving it his all, like every single scene, every single line.
Hateful Eight is so fucking good with him, just ruling that movie. Yeah.
And then you watch this, and it's just like he's just like a bag of cement could outact. Like it is bad.
It's true.
It's no emotion at all. And people will argue, "Oh, that's his character," but sorry, that doesn't work for a movie. Characters should not be that.
I want to explain on his character just a little bit before we transition, but hold on one second. Mace Windu.
One thing is, it's such a shame because he's like one of the greatest American actors of all time.
And what's even worse, he's a huge Star Wars nerd. He wants to be in these.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, he has multiple stories that he tells about when he got offered Star Wars, where it kind of like, oh, the prequels were kind of going around and someone started, like agents started talking. And he's like, I don't even care if I'm a stormtrooper. You can just put me in the back and I can say I was in Star Wars.
Yeah.
To the point.
I've seen the clip where he talks about where he gets to choose his lightsaber handle, where he's freaking out.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen that where he's geeking out.
Well, the only reason that he has a purple lightsaber is so he can tell who he is in the arena shot.
Yes. Yes, I
in Attack of the Clones, which is amazing. Where he's just like, "Well, I want to know where I am. I want to know it's me. I was doing that, right?" He changes Star Wars lore. That's how cool Sam Jackson is, and that's how much he loves it. He changes Star Wars lore that George Lucas treats like gold. just so he can say, "You see that? That's me. I'm in a Star Wars movie."
Yeah.
And yet, in this performance, he's awful.
I think that shows like the exhaustion of Enon. It's just like nothing's real. You're acting against like 95% of the time, blue screen.
Yeah.
And it's just this dialogue that most of the time is not good.
Oh.
And honestly, Mace Windu's given nothing to do in these.
Except look like a prick.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know what we should do with, legitimately, whatever you want to say about Sam Jackson, you might not even be a fan. No one can argue this. He is one of the most likable actors ever. He's on screen, he says 3 words, and immediately people are like, love that guy. That guy's the truth.
Awesome.
Love that guy, right? You know what we should do with a character like that, with a guy like that, who's on the good team, who we're supposed to be rooting for? Let's make him a total prick and not likable at all. That's what we should do with one of the most charming actors that we have at our disposal. Fucking dumb.
Actually, that brings up one of my other notes too. Is Order 66. What I wrote down during it was, I really wish I gave a shit about any of these characters.
Yeah.
Like I don't care about any of these Jedi. You have not given me a reason to care about any of these.
Mm-hmm.
Like Scotty Mundi, I know his name. That's about it. I know he has a giant fucking forehead. Like, what else do I know about him? Nothing. Fisto, I don't know anything about that fucker. What's the other guy? Who's the orange lightsaber
Plo
fucker?
Koon.
Plo Koon. I don't know shit about him. Weird blue dread girl. I don't know anything about her. Like, I don't know anything about these characters. Who gives a fucking shit?
Yeah.
I will say, I really like the score there. The Order 66 score is great.
The score is great. But, again, to showcase how dumb these characters are, right? They never see Palpatine coming. And every time Palpatine is on screen, legitimately every time, except once, he is kind to Anakin, and he's rude to everybody else.
Yeah.
He has to make a comment about something. He even when, before, it's right before he reveal in the dumb reveal scene to Anakin where he decides he's the evil Sith Lord. I'm gonna go back to the Jedi, as opposed to, hey Jedi, come to me. I've apprehended the fucking Chancellor. Right? He's just like, oh, we found General Grievous. They sent Obi-Wan. I hope he's up to the challenge. It's like, technically speaking, he helped save your fucking life, asshole. Granted, he wasn't very good in that fight, but he did help.
Yeah.
And he saved your skin. And his best friend is who you're saying this shit to.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, we couldn't, or the opera scene. Does he ask, could you please give us a moment? There's no grace. No. Everyone's just sitting there watching the opera. Anakin shows up and he's like, leave us. And you're like, okay. Fuck.
See, I took that as are those his cronies?
Those are his cronies.
Okay.
But you don't know that in the fucking movie. You know that from the lore.
Yeah.
You know that from the extended shit.
Are any of those characters like in the original trilogy and I'm just like blinking on them?
No,
I don't know.
That's the problem. Okay. All the expanded lore that we've gotten, those are cronies.
Okay.
But you don't know that in the movie, so you just go, oh wow, all these people, we always see them in prominent roles in Senate meetings and stuff. We always see them.
Should have been like a Tarkin or something like that with him.
But
that makes sense.
But do we see that? No. We just see him being a prick to them. Why wouldn't Anakin go like, it's kind of fucked? Okay. Really nice to me though. So,
Yeah.
but force him to have those ideas. Force him. That's the problem. You can clearly tell that this guy's not good.
Yeah, it's very evident.
So Anakin is a moron for going with him. He's a moron. Obi-Wan is the only one with half a brain, and he's not presented well either. I don't want to just defend him because he's my favorite character. He's not presented well either. But at least he has some nuance a little bit.
The saving grace in this movie is that Ewan McGregor finally looks like he understands how to act in these movies.
Yeah.
Like, he finally looks like he understands how to act in this blue screen environment. He's, like, the only one that seems how to, like, do it. Whereas everyone else still is just, like, either apathetic or just, like, downright does not give a fucking shit.
Which is also hilarious because
or
now...
still is just, like, yeah, out of it.
Yeah, which is hilarious because now in interviews he's stated that if you would have asked him too close to those movies to come back as Obi-Wan, he would have said no. Because he's like, I was surrounded by blue screen. I was kind of by myself all the time.
Exactly.
And
it can't be fun to do that.
And he's just like, it was isolating, and you never felt any real sense that you were doing something. It was very hard. He's like, that's why another reason why it kind of took long for me to kind of come around to doing more. He's like, I always loved he always felt privileged to be in Star Wars. But that's what he said. He's like, it was such a taxing experience just kind of being alone on a blue screen for months by myself.
Yeah, I completely, especially in this movie where he's literally alone for most of it.
Well, remember, Attack of the Clones, almost the entire movie he's by himself. He's got to go to the cloning planet. He's got to do all that shit with like CGI characters. He's fighting Django in this like giant ass fucking blue screen environment that's clearly blue screened. He's got a lot of like the espionage kind of stuff going on. He's by himself all the time.
Yeah, that's true. I don't blame him for saying that. I mean, Ewan McGregor is like, I love Ewan McGregor as an actor.
I do too.
But like, it goes down to like one of the things that people always say about acting is like acting is not so much about what you're doing; it's about reacting to other people.
Yeah.
But if there's no other people around, what can you do?
Correct.
Like, how good of a performance can you actually give?
Yeah, like, and that's the thing that sucks is you can tell, and everyone looks like a fucking moron. Mace Windu, just blinded by hatred for this kid, idiot. Oh, it's fine. I'll take 4. This guy, like, let's just play this one out here. Mace Windu, the Chancellor of the Galactic Republic, who has stayed in office long after his term expired because they just keep giving him more power, reveals himself to be a Sith Lord. You take 3 other chumps to go get him? No, you bring the whole fucking Jedi Council and you're like, hey, motherfucker, we know.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I'm gonna leave my best warrior, who in Star Wars lore theoretically is supposed to be like the most famous hero of the galaxy. Anakin Skywalker's supposed to be like the guy, right?
Oh, at this point he is?
He's supposed to be, and you learn that through the expanded lore, but you don't know that through the movies. You just think he's a chump.
I didn't know that.
But he's supposed to be like the most renowned hero of the war. To like everyone knows who Anakin Skywalker is because of all of the shit he does. That's wild, but gets the job done. He's supposed to be like a famous. He's supposed to be like a famous maverick warrior. Let's give my best warrior and let's put him on the bench. I'm going to the Super Bowl, but I'm going to bench my starting quarterback who got me here. Just fucking dumb. Then, manipulation. Oh, he has to stand trial. He has to live. He's too dangerous to be left alive. You don't think this is playing right into his hand? The Jedi are taking over. I'm going to kill him. That's what you thought was
That's
gonna
where
help?
that didn't make any sense here. Because at first it seemed like he was gonna take him in,
He
be
was.
arrested, right?
Yes.
And then and then immediately it's just like, oh, never mind. I'm just gonna fucking kill the guy.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, where did that come from?
In front of a guy who you clearly can't trust and you don't trust.
Yeah, and also I don't really understand Anakin's point of view on that when he's like, I need him alive. Like I need him. It's like if you did, just let's just say for a second that Palpatine got arrested.
Yeah.
It wouldn't help you, Anakin. After that, like it's not like he's gonna teach you the ways of the dark side after he's arrested.
Well, also, I mean, the logic that he's actually going to be stuck in a prison that's going to actually contain him is a little too impossible for me
Well,
to believe.
that's true. Yeah,
They have some
but like,
they have some lore expanded stuff that you could entrap a force user, but never shown in the movie, so we wouldn't fucking know that. So,
but I was just, but like from Anakin's point of view, there's no way he could have stayed good and also achieved his quote unquote goal in this of saving Padme.
yeah. Again, he's an idiot.
Yeah,
But let's just continue the trend here. Yoda. This guy comes to you, who you guys clearly don't trust. You don't trust him. And he finally brings about something very important, having premonitions of somebody dying. You get him to admit it's someone close to him, and you just say, mourn them do not, miss them do not. Celebrate them becoming part of the Force. That's your therapy? That's what you think is the best decision?
this is another part where I was like, okay, so is Yoda just completely overrated? Because obviously Yoda can't tell who he's talking about,
No.
but Palpatine can.
Yeah.
'Cause Palpatine obviously know he's talking about Padme,
Yeah.
and it's just like, okay, so is Yoda just like either he's just ignorant or he's just not that great with the Force? Which one is it?
Right. Well, then on top of that, going back to Obi-Wan, when he meets Padme, and I'm going to talk about how dumb Padme is, but when you, like Obi-Wan, when he goes to Padme after Order 66, they've returned to the Jedi Council, or to the Jedi Temple, he learns that Anakin's the one who did all this shit, right? Goes to Padme and starts talking to her. And at the end, asks the question, Anakin is the father. The way it's presented is like, oh, he deceived Obi-Wan even. Where the expanded stuff was smart enough, like in Clone Wars, there are multiple scenes in which Obi-Wan clearly turns a blind eye. He knows.
That would make way more sense.
And there's a scene that was cut from this movie, and like the dialogue's either been released or the whole scene's been released since, where it's abundantly clear Obi-Wan knows when he's talking to Padme. And you can see that I knew he was breaking these rules. I knew he wasn't doing right by the code. But I loved him and I cared about him, so I covered for him.
Yeah, that would make more sense because that shows friendship.
And immediately you just sympathize with him because you're like, everyone's been in that spot before. Where they've covered for a friend when they knew it probably wasn't the right decision to do so. But they did it because they cared about the person. And immediately you just go, Obi-Wan's a fucking G. Love that guy. But no. You present him at the end even as like, he's the father, isn't he? I'm so sorry. Like, people who are trying to give Obi-Wan the benefit of the doubt because at least he showed some sense compared to the others, go, oh, that was him just trying to be nice. He clearly knew. But the dialogue and the way it's presented doesn't give you enough to do that.
Just argue that stuff that clearly is not there.
Yeah.
Like, you're just making stuff up at that point.
Correct. And that's the thing is he's the only one with any emotional intelligence whatsoever, so that's why people do it. But like I like the scene, one of the good scenes that I do actually think is good in this movie is the scene after the Jedi Council tells Anakin he's not a master. And there is actually a good exchange between McGregor and Christensen in which he's just like, it's insulting. This has never happened in the history of the Jedi. He's like, you're also the youngest person that's ever been on the council. And your friendship got you this. Your friendship publicly got you this. He's like, that has nothing to do with it. He's like, it's exactly what you wanted, though. You got everything you wanted. And you're still the youngest person to ever get this honor. Accept it and roll with it. And then he says, then he has to tell his friend, clearly uneasy about it, they want you to do this. And the only good line here is, you're asking me to do this. He's like, the council's asking you, making it very clear, I don't want to do this to you. The council is doing this to you. And it's the one fucking moment in this entire movie where you can tell someone gives a shit and someone cares.
Yeah. Well,
and you believe it.
That's the biggest problem is like you shouldn't need supplemental material to enrich your experience of these movies.
Yeah.
Like that's a bullshit excuse.
Oh yeah.
That I mean, people argue like, oh, it just enriches the. It's just like if these movies aren't fulfilling, then they're just not good movies, or like to me.
Yeah.
Like they can be good to you, that's fine, but to me, they're just like not well constructed.
No. Well, it was funny because I was talking about doing this show with you last night with Ab, and I told her we were talking about some of the comments that we got on the Phantom Menace rewrite, and it was just the blatant arguments of, you don't know Star Wars more than George Lucas, ergo you're wrong. And I was like, it's okay if you like the movie more than I do. If that works for you, that's great. Like you said, if you want to like it, go for it. But I'm not talking about what happens. I'm talking about how it happens. And that goes away from, well, I like Star Wars and I like George Lucas, to the actual craft of screenwriting, of directing, of acting. All of that turns into closer to factual arguments. And that's the problem. Is,
I mean,
when you can go and say this doesn't work because of X, versus, when it's the same thing, I guess, if you're going to critique art, like you're critiquing a painting. If you love the final thing, that's awesome. That's great. But when you can clearly see that, oh, they put the wrong paint on this and then they went over it and they didn't cover it perfectly. Well, I still love the overall composition. It's like, well, but that's clearly a flaw that you can see based on the construction of it, not the, or like, let's say it's a statue, right? And it's missing a big toe. Well, that's a factual, and it's a statue of David, right? And it's intentionally missing a toe. Well, it's still, look at the whole composition. It's beautiful. It's like, yeah, but like, it's missing a fucking toe. Like, on purpose.
My argument is just like, people always just say like, oh, well, if you watch 7 seasons of the Clone Wars, these movies become enjoyable. It's like, I'm not gonna.
It's a lot of time to invest.
Stuff. I'm not gonna invest that much time in something I already don't like that much just to like maybe enjoy this movie a little bit more.
Yeah. I think that's more than fair. It's more than fair.
Yeah. If you enjoy these movies, that's great. I love when people enjoy movies that I don't enjoy, because at least someone likes them.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good thing. Because at least, the filmmakers didn't waste their time.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. Like, because there are times when, there's plenty of movies that like get made and everyone hates them, and it's like, well, that was a shame because
Adam Webb.
Yeah, it's a shame because like a lot of people work hard on movies like that.
Yeah.
And like there is like true craft that goes into movies that are unfortunately bad.
Yeah.
If you like those movies, it's great. And there is a lot of craft in Revenge of the Sith. Like like a lot of the visual effects artists on this movie are like the visual effects,
They're the best of the best. No one's better than
and
they are.
they a lot of this stuff still stands up in 2000 from 2005, which
Yeah.
is impressive. Like all the Mustafar stuff, although I think it goes on way too long, it still looks good.
It looks great.
Like when they're dueling against like that, like the lava that's like blowing up and stuff in the background, that looks great.
Looks incredible.
But there's also a lot of flaws in this.
Yeah.
So it's just like if I just don't understand like attacking someone for not liking something you like. It just
Well,
doesn't make sense.
well, again, it goes into when you critique something. Most of the time, we actually critique something. I'm not saying there isn't a subsect of people and a large culture online. They shit on something to shit on it, right? Which I think is kind of comedy, but comedy's a different genre. Comedy, you're pouring thought into something and trying to make people laugh. That's not, and like the genesis of that, how you get there, is the important part. It's not the fact that you're actually being rude or shitting on something, right?
Yeah.
Here, when you're talking about critique of artistic critique of a movie, book, whatever, there are literally hundreds of degrees in a college setting that are teaching you about critical thinking that are based off the idea of critique because they hone your craft and make your craft better. It's not to go, we're going to cover this book so you guys cannot like it. No, we're going to cover this book to make you cognizant of the fact of what is good and what is bad in it. So then we don't repeat the same mistakes we did before. When you don't allow people to critique, you immediately belittle their opinion, belittle them, and belittle entire art form, really, because art is just a reaction to something else. It's usually to make us feel something because we felt something ourselves, right? And that's my biggest issue with a lot of this stuff is, again, the visuals, incredible. ILM and the entire production team do a phenomenal job on this film.
Yeah,
It's
especially
great.
considering like 90% of the movie is visual effects.
It's
Like literally
incredible.
every single clone trooper in this is 100% CGI. Like there are no practical stormtroopers, clone troopers in this movie.
Which is wild.
Yeah, I mean, do they hold up 100%? No, but for the time, it's great.
It's still better than a lot of the movies we get today, which is crazy to say.
Very true. Yes, that's very true.
And that's what I'm saying is like, if you we critique things because we want them to be better. We want to enjoy them more. You know, it's something I get a lot of this because I've done a couple podcasts on critiquing AEW, the number 2 wrestling company in the country. Their product legitimately sucks, in my opinion. I don't critique it to go, AEW sucks. I critique it because I want to actually enjoy their product. I want to actually watch a wrestling product that I like because I think it has logic and storytelling to it, which is why I like the things I do. I don't like when I get my intelligence insulted. Some of the dialogue in this, when I'm supposed to believe that someone's in love with somebody so much that they are willing to sacrifice the lives of thousands of other people to save that one person. I don't want my intelligence to be insulted by how bad it is to do it. I want the craft to be better so I can buy it. I love Star Wars. It's foundational to who I am as a storyteller. I want to enjoy it. I critique it because I want it to be better, not because I want to go, Star Wars sucks, and you're an idiot for liking it. That's always my biggest thing with this. I just want it to be better because I want to enjoy it.
Yeah. no one wants to watch a bad movie.
No, you
That's
want
the
to
easiest
watch,
way of
and
saying
that's the
it.
thing is, that's why I don't really go for when people say it's so bad it's good, and that's how they try to sell me a movie. I don't watch it.
There are fun movies like that, but it's few and far between, really.
Well, that's the thing is, when I get one of those organically, I enjoy it because I just went, this is fucking terrible, but I'm enjoying it
Yeah.
because it's so funny that it's so bad. Or, like, or occasionally, it's just happened recently. There was a movie that I thought wasn't going to be very good. I still don't think it's very great, but someone really, really wanted me to watch it. I went, okay, I'll watch it with you. And I did it. I went, okay, this has some redeemable points in it. This is kind of fun, but it's not good. But it's so bad or so ridiculous, it's fun thing. But I'm not gonna just automatically, if someone tells me, "Oh, it's so bad, it's good." Like I know there are people that talk about Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith for the love story, and they're like, "The love story's so bad, it's good." I'm like, no, no, it is not. I'm not gonna
Yeah, to
watch it
me,
for that.
it's just dull, really.
It's insulting. That to me, what it is, it's insulting to the intelligence when you're trying to again, I'm not saying I have the world's greatest love story, but I have a partner
I
that I love dearly, and it's legitimately insulting sometimes when you're supposed to be like, this is the greatest love in the galaxy. And on my worst day with my wife, I am 1,000% more loving and caring towards her, and she is towards me, than these two are on screen.
I'd be curious to just see if someone just cut out every single Padme and Anakin scene from this trilogy and spliced it all together. I bet no one would give a shit about it. Like you wouldn't feel a single thing about their love story.
Yeah, it's not many people. But again, there's a whole subsect of population that they they just watch it to watch it. They just watch it and they go, "Well, they're in love because they told us they're in love." Like, but I don't buy it. I don't
It
believe
doesn't
it.
feel authentic.
It's the same thing. Let's take another movie for example, right? Tom Cruise is like 5'8", and by many people's standards is small. But when he jumps into the cockpit as Maverick, I buy that he's a fighter pilot. I buy that he is one of the biggest badasses to ever grace cinema. I buy it because of the performance Tom Cruise gives in it. Michael Keaton, again, smaller guy, but when he's in the Batman suit and he puts on the voice and he lets the darkness come out, I buy that he's Batman. Because the performance is there. Or I'll use the same example for a love story. Him and Michelle Pfeiffer have insane fucking chemistry. Does help that they were together at one time in real life, but nonetheless, they have insane chemistry in that movie. I buy it. Or fucking Viggo Mortensen and Liv Tyler have chemistry. I buy
Yeah,
that they love each other in The Lord of the Rings. I don't buy
that
these two.
that's a great example, actually, of a love story that I actually argue. I wouldn't argue. It has to be a fact that they show less between the
There's barely anything.
Aragorn, and what,
Arwen.
Arwen.
Yeah, Arwen.
Yeah, between those two than they do Anakin and Padme.
There's more
And I
interactions. There's more interactions between Aragorn and a woman that loves him that he doesn't love back than there is of the woman he actually loves.
but I'm saying like I feel way more love between Arwen and Aragorn a s- in it has to be at least half the screen
Yes.
time.
Yes.
So it's just like there's an inherent flaw when you don't care about the love story.
Again, yeah, and that's why a lot of people, when you get these schlock movies, that's why they call them schlock, because you don't buy it. You don't believe in the people. You don't believe in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest flaw with this, is when you don't buy it, it's insulting to your intelligence when you keep getting hit in the head. No, 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 you're not getting it. It's like, no, I am. You're not getting it. It it's not that hard.
Yeah.
And it's
And
and
the
it's
problem
sad because whatever. whatever.
And
Continue.
the real problem is like uh this entire trilogy, really, central focus of it should have been that love story. It would never do that in a Star Wars movie, but it should have been because that's the entire reason that they chose for Anakin to go to the dark side.
Correct.
And they chose that as the central reason. That should have been the central focus of this trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
If you weren't going to use that as the central focus, then focus on whatever you want. If you want, trying to think of what's the like central focus of this trilogy, right? Like the war.
Yeah. The war brings out the worst in people, I think. I don't fucking
So
know.
then, yeah, you would have to do some kind of. It's warped by. He gets corrupted by the war, kind of like. Oh, you do it kind of like a Nazi, like Hitler Youth kind of thing,
Yeah.
where he just gets corrupted in the mind, sees it from a different point of view as everyone else. He gets brainwashed into a different way of thinking. Like, if that's the story you're going to tell, then make that the reason he turns to the dark side, not something that's unrelated.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're going to choose the love story, then focus on the love story and actually make it. They do try to focus on it at times. It just isn't successful,
It's not successful. So
fortunately.
I think another flaw is this was just brought up by James Gunn that when he was talking about this new Superman movie that's being released in July, he didn't cast Clark and Lois. He went with the internet term. He was like, I was casting Clois, the two of them
Yeah,
together, because they are central
smart.
to each other. So I could have the best Lois actress in the world, but if I don't buy her with Clark, it ain't gonna work, or vice versa. I can get the best Clark in the world, but if they have no chemistry and this Lois isn't good for this Clark, it's not gonna work. I need them to be in unison. If you thought Natalie, like you already chose Natalie Portman when you were
That's
casting,
true. You already had her.
you already had Natalie Portman. So the biggest thing you should have done in the casting process is involve her. Watch her do her reads with everybody else. Make sure that keep asking questions. Who do you feel comfortable with? Who are we seeing is bringing out the best performance in you? All this kind of stuff. That's not inherently who do you like, but who brings this out of you. We talked about this with Amy Adams and Henry Cavill, where you're like, I don't buy those two at all.
Oh yeah, I went hard on those two.
Oh yeah, you did, and that's okay because it didn't work for you. And to me, it doesn't work super well. I wasn't as harsh as you were, but I was like, yeah, it doesn't fit for me, right? Same deal here. You need to have these two work if that's what you're gonna pick, and it doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, and Natalie Portman's a good enough actress that I believe. I've seen movies where she has Kim.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I know she can do it. It's just not done right.
Yeah,
And I do think it is partially George Lucas's writing, which is why I brought up the Lawrence casting, or
yeah.
someone bring in another
Somebody,
writer.
just bring somebody in to clean it up.
Yeah, and then the
What's hard is also knowing that in the past he let go a little bit and the results were really good for him.
true, yeah, 100% true.
That's the thing that's so flat.
He let other people direct the movies, which is a huge surprise. When you look at the prequels,
And that's the wild part. Is the best one of the entire saga. Nobody argues what the best movie of Star Wars is.
yeah,
He didn't direct it. He was
actually,
involved with it. He made the story, but Lawrence Kasdan was crucial in that writing process. Irvin Kershner was crucial in the directing process and in the writing process with it. And the whole thing is Irvin Kershner was like, I came from a background of romantic movies. I was used to doing romances and romantic comedies and all these things. And I had to learn how to not have gags or not have things like that, but still have this intense romance element to it. And he figured it out and he did it. It's like you already had the tools in the toolbox.
It's strange that he became so like had such a tight grip on the trilogy.
Well, what's odd to me, I guess, if we're going to critique the psychology of George Lucas, is the biggest thing he's always said is, I don't like how corporate movies have become. He then also reflects, which is ironic because
That is odd.
he also says, which I know is ironic because I'm like Anakin Skywalker. I've kind of become the thing that I
I
was
was about
fighting
to
against.
say,
He's self-aware.
is
He's
ironic.
self-aware of that. And he's like, I don't like how corporate they've become. But his biggest thing was he never liked studio interference. He didn't trust studios because of what they did to his former work.
Sure. I can see that, yeah.
Here's the problem though, dude. When you go into the prequel trilogy, you're already made. No one's gonna question you. No one's going
Exactly.
to. No one's gonna come in and say, I know you want to tell this nice little love story, George, but the studio really thinks that you should be focusing on the canons, and it should be focusing on the starfighters. That's what really sold the movie before. No one's gonna do that to you.
Yeah. And it is like, obviously she's a problematic figure now. Joe Rowling, Harry Potter author,
Yeah,
like he had an editor on those books. It's not like she's like a dictator and just like writing those books, whatever she wants goes.
yeah.
She had an editor, so she took notes, at least. Like, that's the problem with this.
And yeah,
But
it's just there's not much to save, and it's clear.
yeah,
Also, I keep saying we're gonna talk about it. I need to talk about it. Padme's a moron in this movie. And it's
okay,
hurtful
yeah,
because she's supposed to be the Leia. She's supposed to be like
true.
you're supposed to have the same feel for Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme that you do for Luke, Han, and Leia. It's just not there.
Oh yeah, you get nowhere near that.
And Obi-Wan's by far the most likable, but he's more in comparison to Luke than he is Han. Anakin, I guess, is supposed to be the Han because he's more of the starfighter and more of the maverick, but yet he's supposed to have more of like the twisted journey of what could have been Luke if Luke went to the dark side. And it doesn't really work. And Leia is Leia is so strong. It's just implicit. She is so strong. You don't feel like they're saving a damsel when you save Leia. You pick up this character that just was fucked over so many times that now that she's free, she's going to make everybody pay for it. You don't feel like, oh, the damsel's been saved and then she's just window dressing. And Padme, it's the polar opposite. Oh, she was a queen. She's a senator. She fights for what's right. And yet, she's married to a mass murderer and can't see it. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ, girl.
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah, that's true. At the end, she does become like pretty. Well, I mean, if you bought their love story, then it would go down easy. You'd be like, okay, yeah, I can understand why she's so conflicted. But because you don't buy it, it's just like, yeah,
What,
she just seems dumb.
what's wild to me is she clearly feels something's wrong. Obi-Wan confronts her, and I buy that she would be like, I don't believe you. Because you're not hearing it from the source,
Yeah,
whatever. Like, go read a Reddit story of Am I the asshole or am I the jerk? You'll understand why people have these thoughts all the
yes,
time. You'll understand Padme a lot better if you do that. Then she gets to Mustafar, and like then in one speech, she's just like, I don't know you anymore. You're breaking my heart. It's like, every sign's been telling you this for years. Every
yeah,
one of them.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't. ending is pretty poor in my opinion.
Like
That's
the mellow.
like I do. So just to finish off my notes, the delivery scene, lost the will to live thing is so stupid. I rolled my eyes.
Oh, it's bad.
I was like, oh god, it's. And then I hate that she says their names. Who can could have just been like she just delivers them. That's it. Like we know who they are. Like, we're not stupid. We don't need that.
I guess then they want to stay away from the plot hole critique of, well, how'd they get their names? Padme never gave it to them, so they just gave these kids names. But
Yeah, who cares? Who cares how they got their names? They just have them.
yeah,
It doesn't
it's.
matter.
I would rather have that plot hole than the way it was done. I think you can do it in a different way. Because the thing is,
It just doesn't.
this is
I don't know.
that scene.
That's a nitpick on my.
No, I don't think it is, because the reason I'm saying that is that scene is the reason Ab refuses to watch some of these movies with me when I have to go watch them. She's like, she loses the will to live because her heart's
Yeah,
broken, and that's why she died. And I was like, yeah, that's the lore behind it. And she just goes, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. And I was like,
yeah.
I can't argue with you.
It's yeah. It's not like she just delivered two twins and has no reason to live. She had just delivered babies. Maybe that's a reason to live,
Oh,
Padme.
and that's the thing is, she's choked out, and you clearly know she's not physically. There's no
Yeah,
way that would have killed her the way it was done. But instead, like it's one of those where, like, if again you'll see this in a rewriting process, she clearly has to die, right?
yeah,
So I would just injure her to the point where it's she's so strong she held out to the very moment those kids were alive. It's like she should not be alive, and she's holding out till the last
sure.
moment
That'll
that she
work.
can deliver those two. And the final words, I would have made it way more cutting, as opposed to there's still good in him. I know there is. I would have been like, don't let. The thing I would have wrote was, don't let them become him,
Yeah, that'd work better.
because then
I mean,
immediately you just go, she knows, and she's like, this is his redemption, is these two. Don't ever let them become him. Don't let it fucking happen.
I would also give Obi-Wan another reason to watch over Luke.
Yeah.
So
Also, it's, then you can play into the trap of Obi-Wan feeling guilty that he's partially responsible for creating Vader, that he trained this person to turn on everybody. So with this mother's dying words, who's a dear friend of mine as well, she says, protect them and don't let them be him. And I'm responsible for partially why he does the things that he does. Fuck, yeah, I'm going to make sure this kid doesn't turn out this way. I'm going to watch over Leia as much as I possibly can, too. Whatever the case may
yeah,
be. Just,
yeah. And then my last note is just like this movie is about like I don't know exactly how long it was, but it's like 8 minutes too long. It should just end like the minute that the Vader mask goes on to like shuts down, closes. Like, that should be where it ends. We know what happens.
yeah, the only other notes that I do want to press in quick is funny one. When the Emperor and Yoda are fighting, I think that would have been way more impactful if you don't see Yoda fight in 2 and you see him fight in 3.
Yes.
Or if you do see him fight in 2, you have to show him as clearly the superior one. Because it's kind of it goes back to athletics or whatever the case may be. If you want to present the big bad as the big bad, they have to take out the best guy possible. Because then you know, oh shit, this is real. So if
Yeah.
when you present Yoda and Dooku as almost equals, pretty much in that first fight, you just go, well, Dooku's the same. So if the Emperor's better than Dooku, clearly he should be able to beat Yoda. Whereas if you go, I clearly beat Dooku, and the only reason Dooku escapes is he puts me in the spot where I have to choose: do I take out Dooku or do I save these two Jedi? So I chose to save the two Jedi as opposed to take him out. Then at least you're like, okay, I've established that he's the big good guy. So the big bad guy beats him, so you go, oh shit, there's a problem. Or you don't show it ever, and you just go for, we've already built him as the best good guy. We've already built him as the best bad guy. Mano a mano, who wins?
I don't think the Yoda versus Sidious thing is needed at all.
I don't
in my
think it.
opinion.
I don't think it is. But with the route they took, I understand why they got there. I just don't think it was presented well. But in that fight, this is more of a funny note. The Emperor just wearing trousers is odd when he's flipped in his chair and you just see like black slacks. You're like,
Oh, I didn't see that. That's funny.
it's like, why is the Emperor in slacks? It just kind of takes away from something.
That reminds me of one of my notes. Did you see Anakin playing with his PSP?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, where he's sitting on the couch playing with his little PSP. People won't even know what the fuck that is.
Well, I mean, some that are watching this will. The big fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan, the weird shoehorn philosophical dialogue is awful. Well, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. You don't have to say that. We already know it. Just say, you're blind and naive to think the Jedi are good. Just something. You can still make them
They don't
sound
need
that
dialogue
way.
at all.
They don't need
They
it.
don't need
But if you're
dialogue.
gonna do it, there's so many better ways to say it. And then the big fight has a lot of moments everyone says would be cool. Then you see them and you understand why they aren't done before. So, for instance, I remember watching like swashbuckling type movies and stuff where like they'd swing and they'd have swords. And I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if like one time they actually like, had a sword fight while they were like dangling? I remember that as a kid. And then I saw it in this movie and I went, oh, that's why they don't do it. Because what are you supposed to do? Bing!
Yeah.
Bing! Like, it's...
You can't do much when it's head time.
It's just not there. Or some of the, just like the big operatic, almost Errol Flynn-esque Robin Hood shit. It's like, doesn't work. Just doesn't work.
Hey, I do think the last fight is over choreographed quite a bit.
Yeah.
I've never been a fan of that style of dueling, but that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people really love it.
I think the best duel is still probably Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Maul. My personal opinion. Because I think it's the perfect level of showing that this was an art form for the Jedi and the Sith, but there's still like when like Qui-Gon backhands Maul and there's just a little bit more raw intensity to it where you're like, okay, they're actually fighting, they're actually trying to win. There's not so much of a flourish. This is where it's like a lot of the it's like it gets a little too Power Rangers-esque, and I understand it as a huge fan of Power Rangers, where I just go, why are we doing this sometimes?
I actually liked how they dealt with dueling in the sequel trilogy. It felt like a good combination of the two.
Yeah.
It's just those characters, I just didn't really give a shit about any of them that much, but...
Yeah, I mean, that's the prime word. That's bad. But yeah, just a lot of stuff that you're like, why hasn't anyone ever done that? It'd be so cool. And then you see it and you're like, oh. Well, that's why they've never done it.
Yeah.
Again, one of the other things that's really enriched by backstory, and it's not shown in the movie. You know how Obi-Wan flips over Maul and kills him?
Oh, yeah.
That's what Anakin's supposed to be. That's what we're supposed to be getting from that is Anakin saying, you underestimate me. I'm going to do the same thing that you did. But it never shows him studying. It never shows him worshiping that moment and understanding that, not understanding the impact of that.
He didn't witness that moment.
Well, right. But that's theoretically what we're supposed to get is he knew this is what Obi-Wan did to beat Maul. So not only is he going to do the same thing, he's going to do it to him to show that he's superior. And Obi-Wan's just like, and it's
the thing that ends the fight is pretty stupid.
And it's just one of those that you just go, when you learn that, you're like, oh, that's so, like, in the first 5 minutes, you're like, that's so cool. What a great tie. What a great callback. And, and to show that. But then you go, wait, they didn't tell us that. They didn't show us anything about it. They didn't have a conversation about it. How is anyone supposed to get that and think it's a good idea?
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, I hate that ending of the duel, but I will say the effects, the marriage of the effects and the makeup of burning up,
Oh, that's good.
that looks it looks great.
That looks great. And then the only other things I have is when they drop the kids off, the trio needs to show way more hurt and conflict and splitting up twins than they do. It's just kind of like, I'll take the boy. Well, I'll take the girl. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to talk about how you're going to break these siblings up and they're the only family that they have left in the galaxy and we're clearly bereft of hope and these two could be our hope. No. You're just like, we're going to take the baby girl. We've always wanted the baby girl. Okay. What about the boy? I don't know. Take him to that family that bought his mom as a slave. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it's
Yeah.
just twin sons credits, and you're like, what?
Yeah. I did like. Wouldn't it make 10 times more sense to just if Obi-Wan's already gonna go into hiding, just have him care for Luke?
Yes.
Like that'd make way more sense.
And
Just
that's
ship him off to this fucking farm.
and that's where you just go. That's where I just, again, it's another moment where I'm like, that's when exposition is important. Where you could say, well, I'll protect him. And Yoda could be like, if you do this, you know the Emperor is going to hunt you down. You put him at risk. You can watch over him, but you can't be his direct guardian. Because then he's way too at risk. Then you can say, what else do we do? And then you can show him giving Luke to the Lars family and going, here, this is your legacy to own now. I'll be here when he's needed. Whatever. Twin sons credit there. But it's just like, what do we do? Send him to his family. Okay. Twin sons credits. And I'm like, that's where dialogue can help you for exposition, and it's fine.
It's also this. It's weird that this movie ends on like a hopeful.
Yes, it shouldn't.
When it's really a tragedy, which is why I say it should end when the Vader mask goes on, because it is a tragedy. That's what the overarching story of this entire trilogy is.
Well, also, especially with the retroactive edition of the title, the fourth one is called A New Hope. So it would be more impactful if the hope doesn't start in 3 and it starts in 4.
Yeah. Yeah, it just makes no sense.
And the thing is, I feel like it would be a huge plot hole to not explain and show where Luke and Leia go. I do think that would be a huge problem.
I don't think so.
But
people know. People know where they go. Like they know where they end up.
Yes, but I feel like you're talking about a rare breed of fan here that care about every detail.
Oh, people know where Luke is, obviously.
Well, obviously.
Like, they know where he ends up.
I feel like people would be upset if you didn't show them where they got to. How they got to them.
Fuck that. That's so stupid. Like, if I don't show every single moment of this person's life, and it's not
real. It doesn't count. Yeah.
And that's fucking bullshit. You know where they go. You know where the story ends up. It's so dumb.
You finally got it. I finally got you to give you that big rise.
It's just so stupid to argue again for that. Like, but what you want? What, should we show every single story, like every single character story in this universe? You want the Jabba backstory now too? No, it's so stupid.
Yeah,
like we know where they end up. We can easily understand what their story is from here.
The only reason I would argue for it is I think you don't have to show Leia, because you could say, we're going to take her. I'll take her. Just say, we'll take her back to Alderaan. And you go, okay.
Or if we're going to do that, flip it. So that it ends with Vader and not ends with
That's what
Leia and
I
Luke.
was just about to say. If I were going to
That
do
would make more
this,
sense.
I would say show Vader going through, show Padme die. I think the funeral and the, because it's really the funeral of both of them at the same time. I like that dichotomy. I think that's good. And there's no dialogue, so it's like, cool. Can't fuck that one up. But
So unnecessary though.
it's unnecessary, but I think I like that. I think it's a nice touch. I would have then, what do we do with these kids? I would have shown them go off. 5 seconds of Alderaan, whatever. That's fine. 5 seconds is 5 seconds. Show Obi-Wan giving them Luke, and you can see them walking towards the twin sons. Then show Obi-Wan just have a small smile looking back, and then just immediately go bereft, just being like, "Oh, I got to remember why I just gave this kid away, because my best friend and my brother, I just killed," and then just go, Vader, boom, done. You're right that it should end with Vader.
I just think it'd be 10 times more impactful if it just ended on that Vader just closing and then like the first breath of Vader.
Yeah.
And then first off, you cut off 10 minutes of the movie. That'd be great. Like, you don't need another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It just bothers me. But then again, like, I'm not barely the target audience of this anymore. I was at the time, but not anymore.
But this has been
and then I should
quite the
say,
negative review.
Before we jump into the questions, because we didn't talk about it at the top.
Yeah.
$380 million domestic. Worldwide, $850 million.
It's a lot of money.
So the closest thing domestically was Goblet of Fire. That was $170 million. So it beat it by over $100 million.
It shows the power of Star Wars that after two very divisive, poorly received movies, that people still went, I need to see the end. I need to see how. I need to see.
Boy, do I wish
quote
we were
unquote
talking about Goblet of Fire though.
See, I'm not crazy about that movie. I'm not crazy about it.
There's parts of it I really love. And then rounding out the top 5, War of the Worlds, The First Narnia, and a surprise 5th, Wedding Crasher.
Yeah, that was a big movie.
$209 million.
Yeah, it made some money.
I was like, holy fuck, that has to be like 1,000% return on investment.
Oh yeah,
it's probably well over that, honest.
Yeah, but nonetheless, well, good on them. This has been quite the negative one, so I'll ask, is it worth the money?
I would say yes, only because it's the end of a trilogy.
It's the end of a legacy. It's the end of a legacy.
Yeah, that's true. At the time, there was no more Star Wars planned. It was supposed to be the end of a franchise, really.
As presented to the public, yes. There were internal conversations that Lucas said down the road, maybe I'll do a sequel trilogy, but the general audience didn't know that.
Yes. And then I would also say yes, just because I think people still held out hope that, like, hey, one of these has to be great, right?
It's kind of like, to first fix your problem, you have to admit there's a problem. This is the last straw. This is the one where you just go, oh shit, these aren't good. The first one coming back, you're like, no, but Darth Maul's so cool, and like, oh, Liam Neeson, whatever. Attack of the Clones, you're like, ooh, this is bad. But like, I don't know. I guess like we got to see a lot of Jedi fight, and Yoda fought. Isn't that super cool? Oh my god! And this is the one where you finally just have to go, maybe they're just not good. You have to come to terms with it. You have to admit there's finally a problem before you can solve a problem.
Just real quick, it doesn't have to be any discussion at all or anything.
Yeah.
But just give a quick ranking of the prequels.
Sadly, Revenge of the
Sith. We've rewatched them.
Ranking the prequels, it's Revenge of the Sith is the clear best, and that's sad. Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones is so fucking bad.
Okay. I'm torn between Phantom Menace is just boring at times, so I'd have to agree with you. Revenge of the Sith probably is.
I think Revenge of the Sith is the best because I think that's the best collection of what you have. I think McDermott as Palpatine's the best.
He's hamming it up, yep.
He's hamming it up, but at least you kind of get it.
I say that in a good sense.
Yeah,
Hamming it up in the best sense.
Like, it's the best it's gonna be. We didn't even talk that much about the Emperor. I have huge problems with what went down. I'm not, but we're closing the episode, so I can't do that. Yeah. We'll talk about this more when we rewrite this motherfucker a couple months from now or down the road. But yeah, I think McGregor is the best that he's gonna be and the most redeemable character of the entire trilogy. Because the more you think about Qui-Gon, the more problematic Qui-Gon becomes.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I would say it's got to be Revenge of the Sith. Phantom Menace is saved by action. It's not saved by dialogue or acting. It's saved by action.
True.
And then Attack of the Clones has the worst mix of everything.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say, the thing that I would argue Phantom Menace has over others is practical stuff.
Yeah.
They actually built every ship practically, not obvious miniatures.
Yeah.
But like they did actually build most of the sets. At least some of it was practical.
Or they went to some of the palaces in Europe to like shoot some of the scenes. Yeah.
It just goes a long way in mind, especially nowadays where I'm just like becoming exhausted with all these blockbusters. They just don't go anywhere.
No, it's tough because you don't feel like you're transported anywhere. It's the same thing we talked about this, I think, with Lord of the Rings when I came up once. There's a tangibility to the Lord of the Rings trilogy that The Hobbit doesn't have because The Hobbit so clearly,
yes,
this was shot in a broom closet and we projected all this stuff after the fact, where we built so much of this and we went into such rich landscapes in New Zealand that you couldn't help but feel that you were on the adventure of the Company of the Ring. Whereas, The Hobbit, you're like, oh, we're in the Goblin Caves. It doesn't feel like we're in the Goblin Caves. It feels like we're in Warehouse B.
Yeah. Yeah, when I see environments like that, I just go, okay. There's no sense of wonder anymore with it.
Yeah, so it's difficult. I will say, I think, again, in 2020 hindsight, is it worth the money? No. At the time, is it worth the money? Yes, because it's the end of a legacy that is inarguably the most important piece of film of all time. Without Star Wars, we do not have the modern blockbusters that we all love. We don't have any
most influential franchise.
Yeah. So Star Wars is the most important movie property of all time. So from that context, it's worth the money. But in terms of us recommending a movie based off of the series, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Which tells me exactly with this final question: is it worth the rewatch?
Yeah.
You have to be a huge Star Wars nerd that wants to devour all of Star Wars to want to rewatch this.
Yeah, pretty much.
Alas, but that has been our Biggs box office episode. Let's draw another box office one, and then I'll give a little bit of the calendar for next time.
They pull up this random number generator.
And the next time, let me see. Pull this up quick.
Ooh! We got a good one. We got 1985. I think we both know what that means.
We do know it's Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah. Back to the Future.
However, remember we talked about this because it's an anniversary episode. We're going to do that in July.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So draw again. So draw again because we're going to be doing a couple anniversary shows. That's part of the reason we were going to probably do Revenge of the Sith anyways this year was a 20th anniversary, but
Yeah.
we're going to be doing
Oh yes.
Back to the Future this
Jaws.
year. We're going to be doing Jaws this year. We're going to be doing Jurassic World this year. And we're going to be doing The Force Awakens in December. All because they're anniversary shows.
Yeah. Yeah, around their release date.
As much as we possibly can. Or to coincide with other franchises, whatever the case may be. But we are still going to have a few random drawn ones for funsies. So let's draw a rando one.
That's funny. The other one that just came 75. So let's go again.
All right, we're going to do Jaws. Don't worry, we're doing Jaws.
2007.
2007?
Spider-Man 3. Woo! Oh, God.
It's not 2009, but it's not much better.
I'd rather watch 2009, honestly.
I still think there's some good pieces of Spider-Man 3. Not many. I don't know if there's a single redeeming quality in Revenge of the Fallen, so...
I like Shia LaBeouf.
Actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf. So... I was about to say, and now I'm haunting my internal monologue, I was about to say, please say we can knock out one of these bad ones, just to get it done.
Yeah, that's true. The more bad ones we knock out, the better.
And I believe we're also going to be doing The Sound of Music, because that's a 60th anniversary this year, if I recall correctly.
65. Yep.
So we're going to be doing The Sound of Music in the next couple of months. We're going to be doing Back to the Future in July. We're going to be doing Jurassic World is going to come out in June, right before the new release of July's Jurassic World Rebirth, because we just can't leave Jurassic Park and that franchise alone.
Yep.
And then we're going to be doing The Force Awakens in December. And I will say it was 45th anniversary territory, so we're going to stay in Star Wars, but we're going to get to do Empire in May. So at least we'll have a good movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least I like that one.
Yeah, at least we get the best one as well. Yeah. So we do get to have a lot of fun. We're going to be doing a lot of Star Wars and a lot of other really cool stuff this year. Pay attention to that. Plus, this month, we're going to continue our Oscars trend. So we're going to go through the years 2014 to 2018 in film of the Oscars, give our critiques of those as well as we get ready for our Oscar preview at the end of February to get ready for the Oscars for 2024's film, which is going to be fun. Plus, we're going to start our Top 100 series where we're going to reveal our Top 100 films, discuss some of the best films in history based on our opinions. So it's going to be a lot of fun, plus a lot of other cool stuff. So stay tuned for that. And you look so excited about all those projects.
Some of them.
some of them. But it's going to be a fun time. We got a lot of other cool stuff coming your way, and it will be seen shortly. So stay with us as much as you possibly can. Stay in touch where you can on social media and on the comment section. And if you love this movie, tell us how you think our review today sucks. Or vice versa. Tell us how you agree. It'd be great to get a positive comment once in a while. We get actually more of those than negative ones. But nonetheless, it's Star Wars. We're bound to get a bunch of negative comments about this episode.
It's fine.
But stay in the comment section. Let us know how you do.
Just so I can throw it in there. Cole Sprouse sucks.
You just want to double down every time possible.
Yeah.
Alrighty, but that has been today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Go enjoy your day. Go watch a great movie. Peace, love, and hugs.